What's up, everybody? So, in this episode, where I'm going to be talking about the Raja Jackson incident, yeah, I don't know what to say about this, guys. It's pretty crazy, you know. I think that the staff there, the people that were in the organization, I think they should have been more involved with making sure that nothing crazy would have occurred. Um, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, in the when Raja first got there, right? I remember he met Psycho Stu, and then Psycho Stu threw a prop beer bottle, or like hit him with a prop beer bottle. It wasn't even a beer can. Hit him with a prop beer can. It wasn't even a real beer can. Okay? And I understand that he was upset by it. He was thrown off by it. You know, Raja was upset by it and he was thrown off by it. But at the same time, he was willing to put his differences aside with that man. He shook that man's hand. He shook that man's hand, okay? And then, I think he shook his hand twice, if I recall. And after that, the guy, I think his name was AJ, the guy with the hat. Or at least that's what I think it was. I don't know if his name was AJ or not. But the guy with the cowboy hat kind of gassed him up. Kind of, you know, got him fired up to go in the ring and do some crazy shit to Stu. You know what I mean? Look, the whole situation is freaking crazy, okay? The whole situation is insane. And, I myself, I've been in a few fights. I've been in fights, okay? I've been in fights growing up. I've been in fights in high school. I've been in fights in middle school. And I've been the guy that's been on the ground getting the shit knocked out of him before. I've been the guy beating the shit out of somebody else before too, but I have also been the guy on the ground getting the shit rocked out of me, okay? Getting my ass fucking beat, okay? Luckily, somebody intervened in a timely manner, and I was never knocked out. I have bled before, but I was never unconscious. I suffered a mild concussion, but I never went unconscious in those situations. This was a crazy situation, because after they shook hands, after they agreed that after they both agreed that this wasn't an issue anymore, Raja runs into the ring in the middle of his stream after apparently being gassed up by his viewers or people watching the stream, and decides to literally grab Psycho Stu by the legs, slam him, and then start unloading on him, like punching him. I guess they said it was over 20 times, and it looked, from watching the video, it looked like it was over 20 times. So, that's pretty crazy. That whole situation is mind-boggling. It is insane, my friend. And, you know, it sucks because, you know, Rampage is, you know, his dad is one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time, you know what I'm saying? And now he has to deal with the fact that his son could potentially be facing time. You know, no dad wants to go through that. Wants to, you know, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that your son might actually have to do some freaking time. But, you know, then I understand, right? I understand, you know, if he has to do time, you know, I understand, because the whole situation is fucked up, okay? Like, honestly, Psycho Stu should have been a little bit more, they thought it was a work, right? They thought that Psycho Stu thought it was a work. He thought that he was part of the show. He thought that, you know, Raja was a part of the show. He thought that he was just someone that was there to act with them. But no, that wasn't the case. But see, Raja, I don't think understands how wrestling works. It's not real. They're putting on a story. They're putting on a show by using a story, by using a narrative. And trying to feed you that narrative. And it's not real. But Raja didn't realize that until it was too late. I don't know if he still realizes it, but he he punched Stu countless times when Stu was on the ground unconscious. He punched him countless times. And then the guy with the face paint intervened, okay? The guy with the face paint tried to intervene first. And then he tried to get Raja off of Psycho Stu, but he was unsuccessful in his first attempt, so he backed off. And then he came in for a second attempt to try to get Raja separated from Psycho Stu, and looked like he was going to be pretty fucking unsuccessful again. And then, out of nowhere, comes, I think his name, I forgot his name, but the guy with the pink braids. He comes in, and then he pushes Raja off of Psycho Stu, and then after that, looks like Raja's trying to, like, do the same thing that he did to Psycho Stu to the guy that got him off of Psycho Stu. He's like trying to grab by the legs, trying to slam him, and probably like hit him numerous times. That's what was happening. So from what I've been told, no arrests have been made. Okay, no arrests have been made. From what I've been told, this is what happened. Okay, that no arrests have been made yet. And you also see, after, Raja walks off, there was some other guy with, like, face paint or whatever following Raja, trying to instigate, another skirmish or whatever. But, I guess the guy, Raja's friend was with him, he was holding him back. And then, I don't know what happened, but Raja seemed like he was still pretty upset after the fight. And, it was in his voice, you could tell, as he was walking away, on the streets. But, the whole situation is insane. Like, I heard Psycho Stu, they said that he flatlined. He was flatlined on the floor in the ring, and then I heard that there are rumors going around that he flatlined twice. It's crazy to think that that's probably true. That could be a possibility that he did actually flatline twice, and he got his teeth knocked out. A lot of his teeth were knocked out, and he choked on his own blood. And I heard he choked on his own teeth, too. So that's crazy. He choked on his own blood and teeth, was unconscious, flatlined twice. That's crazy. That is insane. Like, look, I've been in some fights, okay? I grew up, I went to a rough school district, okay? And, there was a lot of fighting going on in the school district, especially in middle school, and then a lot going on in high school as well. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of fist fights and shit. And I was definitely that guy who was easily instigated to fight people in middle school. I was definitely that guy. And even for the beginning of high school, I was that guy, okay? I would easily succumb to instigation to fight someone I didn't really want to fight, but I just want to do it just to be cool. So I can understand why Raja kind of had that mentality. You know what I'm saying? I can understand where that mentality is coming from, because I used to have that mentality. I don't have that fucking mentality anymore, because I realize fighting is not the way, it's not the only way that you can gain respect. And in today's society, it shouldn't be. I mean, maybe back, you know what I mean? Like, it's insane. It's insane. But, like, like I said, I've been in a few fights. I get that mentality. You're being instigated. You want to prove it to everyone you can do it. You don't want to let everyone down. You want to show that you can kick some butt or ass, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I understand that, because I used to be that guy, and I got into a lot of unnecessary fights, and I fucked up a lot of friendships because I decided to cave in. I decided to give in to peer pressure. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is, like, this whole situation's crazy, but the fact that he was unconscious and you kept unloading on him, bro, there's no way to justify that in a court of law. There's no freaking way that this can be justified in a court of law. There's no way. And that's what they're up against. They're up against the court of law. There's no way to really justify Raja doing this. You know what I'm saying? Especially, the fact that you beat him to near death is crazy. Okay, the fact that you beat him to near death is the biggest factor in the whole situation. You beat him to near death. That would either make getting that close is something that broke you, or that, you know what I mean. And apparently now he's banned on Kick, and stuff like that. Apparently, like, now he's banned on, like, the streaming platform Kick and, like, all this shit. But it's I just can't wrap my head around it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole thing is insane. And Rampage came out with a public message, and Rampage is kind of like, he understands what's going on. Like, you could, in the message, I don't have the exact messages right now. I will actually find them. Hold on. Da, 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 da. Let's see if I can find them. Confirm that his... Let's see what he says. Page to public. Okay, so there are some of the key points from his messages. He does not condone his son's actions and is deeply concerned for the well-being of the injured wrestler Stuart Smith. And Stuart Smith was a veteran. Well, I mean, not, he was a veteran. Okay, he was a veteran. He was a military veteran. I don't know which branch of the military he was in exactly, but he was a veteran. Okay, and he started wrestling to get over the PTSD that he had acquired from being in the military. So that's crazy that he was using this as kind of like an outlet to get rid of that trauma, or deal or cope with that trauma. And now he almost lost his life because of it. In an initial post, Jackson clarified that Smith was awake and stable. He added that his son, who had recently suffered a concussion, was not a pro wrestler and had no business in the ring. That is something I also heard about, is that Raja had suffered a concussion from a sparring match or something that had took place a couple days prior to the day of the incident, and he should not have been around wrestlers. He shouldn't have been in that environment. He shouldn't have been offered to participate in a match because he had a concussion, and he was, frankly, his mind wasn't 100% there. He wasn't 100% himself. But that's no excuse, obviously, but that's what it is. In a later live stream, Jackson stated that he wishes he could have been there to prevent the incident. I mean, any father that had to go through that situation probably wishes that they were there, to prevent the incident. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, man. It's just... He also acknowledged the pain the public spectacle caused Smith's family and addressed the racial threats his own family received in the wake of the incident. Okay, yeah, that's messed up. Now they're, like, putting race on this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, that's fucked up. Okay, like, it's one thing to, it's one thing to say that, okay, Raja's actions are not justified and give us reasons why they're not justified, but then to actually take it a step further and to go after the race of the person who committed the act is taking it one step too far. So that's one thing you got to remember. Get me? So yeah, the whole thing is crazy. I watched an interview with the guy that pushed Raja off of Psycho Stu, the guy with the pink braid. Apparently, a lot of the information I got was off of him. You know what I'm saying? And now they're like, the whole situation is insane. You know what I mean? I don't know what else more to say about this? I mean, I've pretty much covered almost about everything. I mean, I'm probably missing something, but I think that the people in the people that were there didn't react in time. They could have reacted seconds earlier, and the damage to Stu would have been significantly less if somebody had reacted 10 seconds earlier, 20 seconds earlier. If someone had reacted 10 seconds earlier, if someone had reacted when the 10th punch was thrown, the injuries wouldn't have been as severe, obviously, but I'm surprised nobody did. That was the longest I've ever seen someone get beaten up in front of a large group of people and no one do anything. That's the largest amount of time I've seen somebody get beat up and have no one intervene on behalf of them. That is the first time. I remember when I used to get into fights, and I remember when I used to get beaten up really badly, there was always someone there to intervene and get the motherfucker off of me. You know what I mean? But now, this is insane. What's this world coming to? We're all becoming a bunch of wusses. Okay? That is what's happening. Alright? We're all becoming a bunch of wusses. Okay, it's not the same as it used to. And maybe I'm biased. Maybe because I grew up, I grew up in kind of a rough neighborhood. I went to a rough school district. It was pretty backwards, and there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of crazy shit that went on. You know what I'm saying? The fact that I went to a school like this and I lived in that environment until I got to my sophomore year of high school. I moved out of there and I went to a normal high school in the suburbs. So that's kind of what changed me. You know what I mean? But I understand completely. I understand both sides, but at the end of the day, I understand Stu's side. I understand Raja's side, but at the end of the day, even though I understand where Raja was coming from with that, it's not justified because you almost beat a man to death. So the fact that you almost beat a man to death, that's where the justification has to be pulled away. And I'm sorry to say this, but Raja, you might have to end up doing time, bro. Because this is just insane. You almost beat a man to death, bro. And you know what I'm saying? It's crazy because he's also 25 years old. When I was doing this shit, I was like in middle school and like the beginning of high school. I was in like my early to mid-teens when this whole thing was going on. And it ended in my early to mid-teens. But at 25, dog, you can't be doing shit like this, bro. I wish Stu a speedy recovery. I'm going to try to find the right GoFundMe page for Stu so you guys can, donate and help him recover from this situation that he's dealing with. I'm going to try to find his GoFundMe page, and if I find the correct link, I will post it in the description box. But other than that, man, that's all I have to say. It's a crazy situation, and Raja is a UFC fighter. He's not a wrestler. So when these guys are telling him, oh yeah, give him his receipt, the guy with the cowboy hat, he was the main issue. The guy with the cowboy hat, he instigated him the most out of all the people that Raja spoke to, that told him to get him back. The dude with the cowboy hat instigated him the most. He said, give him your receipt. And whatever the hell that means in wrestling terms. But you could just tell that he was being gassed up by this guy. And lo and behold, he unloaded on him. And I just think that, we need to find refs who aren't wusses. That ref was a wuss, clearly. We need to find people who aren't scared to intervene when shit hits the fan like this in a wrestling environment. Does that make sense? That's what we need to find. Okay? So, that's all I have to say about this situation. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and I will see you guys on the next podcast. Good night.